Hello, my name is David Pendergrass. I'm the pastor of discipleship here at First Methodist West Chase. I just want to spend a few minutes introducing you to discipleship groups and the ministry of discipleship here at West Chase, and also talk a little bit about the study that's taking place this spring. Discipleship ministry here at First Methodist West Chase is about three major things. We have a vision, and it's growing in mind, heart, and body. Now, if you're watching this, probably means you're a D-group leader, and you should have a discipleship group leader's manual. If you don't have one, please let me know, because it's imperative that you have one, that you know it as well as you can, and inside of it is full of information. It's not that long, I don't think, too overwhelming. I think you'll find it quite useful. But the main thing now I want to focus on is that D-groups and discipleship in general are about growing in mind, heart, and body. Now by that we mean, of course, we grow in our mind, which means we increase biblical knowledge. We grow in our heart, that is, we increase our expression of love toward God and toward neighbor. And we do that by devotional habits. And we increase in our body, in the body of Christ, we increase in growing in healthy, accountable relationships with each other. I really hope in your D group you will use the vocabulary of growing in mind, heart, and body at every group meeting you have. I hope that it's just part of regular vocabulary, that when you talk about things you say, and this is something that helps us grow in our mind, this is help grow in our heart, or growing in our body. Doesn't have to be every other word, but of course I hope it's part of the regular vocabulary of what you do in your D group. It helps all the D groups be unified together under one vision to make sure that the vision of discipleship here at West Chase is being done well. Now there's a huge epidemic in the church, and we all know it if we've been in church for any time, and that is biblical illiteracy. And that's the first part, growing in mind, that is growing in biblical knowledge. Most people don't know much at all about the Bible. And that, of course, is just a huge problem. What I found that most people who do not read the Bible much and don't understand it usually don't do so for two reasons. One is they feel intimidated. They don't know where to start, or they don't know how to read the Bible well, and it's just overwhelming, causes anxiety. The second thing is they don't have the discipline to read it well. Well, this study we're about to embark on is not going to cover the second aspect, learning how to have the discipline of reading it regularly. But the first aspect, being intimidated by the Bible, will be helped dramatically by this study. I guarantee you, if you will help your people in your group learn this material, they will be either not intimidated at all by the Bible or greatly diminished in their anxiety. They'll come to the Bible with a renewed rigor and interest in reading the Bible and understanding it and applying it to their lives. And that's very important what we're doing here at West Chase overall. Unfortunately, since most people don't know how to read the Bible well, we tend to focus on books we can understand better. We might focus a whole lot on a Beth Moore, or Max Lucado, or whomever. And those aren't all bad, they're not all good either, but of course none of them are the Bible. And only the Bible is inspired. And I'm trying to emphasize this point a lot. That is, the Bible is the foundation of Christian faith and practice for the world and for all humans. And so I want to encourage you that to do this study and to take it seriously, of course with fun, but understand that what's at stake here is us understanding the Bible well, the foundational document of the Christian faith. Well, having said that, this study will help increase growing in mind for sure. This book, How to Read the Bible for All It's Worth, is the primary text, and you should have one. If you're a D group leader, you of course get one for free. But I hope you have this text by now, and I hope you'll have it right now in front of you so that you can look over it with me. One quick word about the authors Gordon Fee and Douglas Stewart. Now, Gordon Fee is a retired professor. It says on the back he's a New Testament professor at Regent College, but he's actually retired at Gordon Conwell, and he teaches different places on and off. He's also the current president, or general editor, rather, of the New International Commentary Series. He's ordained Assemblies of God minister, and he works with churches on and off, and he gives conferences all over the world. He's a very well-respected New Testament scholar. Now, Douglas Stewart, however, is a respected Old Testament scholar, and he still teaches. He's a professor at Gordon Conwell University in Massachusetts. Douglas Stewart is mastered 14 different languages. He's an ordained pastor as well in Massachusetts. He has 8 children and loves his family very well. So these 2 men are both world-class scholars. Both went to very good schools, Yale and Harvard and other schools. They went to very good schools, and they're very deliberate Christians. And I want to make sure you understand that about these two authors. They're scholars, and they're Christian scholars. So their faith matters to them. This is not merely an academic exercise at all, and I'm not interested in that in a D group setting at all. But these 2 authors are both well-respected scholars in their fields, and then, of course, they're very good Christians. One quick word, if you'd like to see Gordon Fee in action, go to YouTube. Go to YouTube and do a search for Gordon Fee, How Should We Read the Bible? Gordon Fee, How Should We Read the Bible? And there's about a 20 or 30-minute interview of Gordon Fee, and he explains kind of a gist of the whole book, and you hear him in action. Another thing is, if you'll look on your outline, which you should have with you, and it's a summary and outline that I made from the book, and I got written permission from Zondervan to do this because there's a lot of the book in it. But I've added a lot of different additions as well. At the very bottom, you'll see that you can download an MP3 of How to Read the Bible for All It's Worth for about $17 on Zondervan's website. So I hope that you'll check that out. Tell your people in your D group, please, about this audio version because some people in traffic, through going back and forth to work, some people may not be strong readers, and it makes them anxious to read too much. But I would encourage you to make sure they see this on their outline and that they check that out and download that if they want to, and of course if you want to as well. Now, this text is a wonderful synopsis, a summary of what biblical scholars believe about how to read the Bible. I've never read anything like it. It's a wonderful summary. If you were to go get a master's and PhD and you were to summate, get it all winnowed down to the basics of how scholars read, this is exactly what we covered in the master's and PhD programs. Now, it's not everything we covered, but again, it's exactly what we covered of how to read it. So this is an invaluable, wonderful resource to put into the average person's hands of how to read the Bible. So it's wonderful, and it's very unfortunate that things like this don't make their way more often into the pew, but that's what we're here to change. Now, having said that, this book, because it is a condensed form, it's almost certainly a little more dense than you're accustomed to if you're not used to reading books like these. And the odds are very high that in your D group, there will be people who are not accustomed to reading books like these. I just want to encourage you to not give up and encourage your people to read. But if they don't read the book, if they don't buy the book and don't read, they don't have to, but I encourage it. And I would like for you to encourage it as well. But if they don't want to, at least I would encourage them to read the outline. I would encourage them to read the outline because I have I've done the best I can to take the book, each chapter, usually 20 to 30 pages of a chapter, and narrowed it down to about 2 or 3 pages of summary. That includes discussion questions. So don't be anxious or overwhelmed. Right? One chapter at a time. You can do it. And that with the summary, I think you're going to do just great. Let me say a quick word about the outline and some tips, and then we'll be done. The outline here, as you'll see on the cover page, is a schedule of readings. We'll begin January 6th. Now, the first thing I want to notice with you is that the order of the books, the chapters, is not the same as the order in the book. For example, it's chapter 1, then chapter 2, then chapter 5, chapter 11, and so forth. Please make certain your people in your group notice that as well. If they're not careful, they'll keep on going chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they will not have read appropriately. So the chapters are in canonical order, that is according to the Bible, not according to the book. And you'll see it makes sense as you look along. That's the first thing I want to make sure you see. Secondly, in your D groups, don't be afraid to skip around if you need to a little bit. But what I do encourage you to do, very much so, is to cover the main bullet points, which are bold. So please be certain to read at least the bold print. And I'll tell more about that later in the videos to come. Another thing is, inside of this summary outline, you'll see these little figures. These little figures are red, green, and blue characters. That means it's time for discussion. So every time you see these figures, if you look to the side, there's a bullet point. And this is all through the outline. Every time you see those little figures, that's the time to have a discussion. and I have written for you discussion questions. Of course, you can come up with your own, but I encourage you to think about the ones I've written as well because they're very much in line with the text. I also encourage you, when you're in your D group, to have the members in your group read the text. That is, you don't need to do much talking. Have the people read. So just call on people's name. Bob, do you mind reading bullet point number 1 in that paragraph? Sue, do you mind reading number 3? Whatever it is. And then so you can help facilitate, but it's really helpful to have other people read. It's going to help them stay more engaged and stay more active. Whenever you start a new D group meeting, I also encourage you to do a little bit of review, and I mean a little bit, because there's a lot of content to cover in one morning or one night or one afternoon, whenever your D group meets. So you don't need to do 5 or 10, 15 minutes of review. Just real quickly at the beginning. Don't forget last week we were talking about historical and literary context or whatever it is, and then you just get right on into it. Don't be afraid to repeat things several times. Bob, read number 1 for me. Sue, will you read number 1 for me? It's okay to repeat that over and over. That's how people learn, by hearing it many times. Feel free to help the group be engaged by saying, hey, let's go on Facebook and start a Facebook discussion group. And let's do a Facebook D group for our D group and have a discussion tab, and let's talk about the chapter. Let's post insights that week from reading. Whatever it is, try to get your people engaged. But most importantly, please do your best to help your D group feel comfortable. What I have found in nearly 15 years of church ministry so far is that many people feel uncomfortable with the Bible. And they're afraid that the question they're going to ask is one of the stupid questions. Please do your best to help them feel comfortable to ask any question that they need to ask. Say things like, there are no dumb questions. It's okay. What's that called? It's called a Bible. Right? You just start with the basics. You don't want to laugh at them. You don't want to roll your eyes. Some of you are hearing this now. I know you're going, I would never do that. But yet I've seen many times where people do that, and I just see how it crushes people's spirits. So do your best as a D group leader to make certain people are welcomed and warm and safe. It's safe here, you might tell them, to be ignorant. It's safe to be ignorant. It's okay not to have all the answers. I don't have all the answers. You won't either. David doesn't either. Paul doesn't either. Whomever. That's okay. Here, we're going to learn. And we're not all at the same level, and that's okay. But if you have that outline, and if you like to read and you can get the book, stay along with us, and you're going to do just great. If you have any questions, please ask me. I'll help in any way that I can. And may God bless you. I'm looking forward to see what the Holy Spirit does through the discipleship ministry here at West Chase.